And we're back, part two. So as I was saying in episode two, it's the most gut wrenching episode. Um, and side note, I just want to know. I also want to make a note that every episode starts with the actors in their real life, and it kind of makes sense because these miniseries is called Scenes from a Marriage, and it very much mimics like a play. So we have instances of them breaking the fourth wall, and we see reality, and also it's also a preview, or no, I'm sorry, like an insight into what filming now looks like because they shot this mini series during COVID. So you see like all the protocol and like the visors and the masks, and obviously, everybody on set needs to be tested, and then they go into the scene. And we're talking about very intimate scenes. There's even instances where Jonathan, Oscar's character, smokes. So you can see like he has to open like the door for ventilation or whatever, which we don't really necessarily see that of the original miniseries. And also, just to make a note, a point of that is, um, even though the original character from the 1973 miniseries, the wife, is a divorce lawyer, she is, like I mentioned, very meek. Now, I don't know if that just has to do with tradition and not wanting to break tradition. Remember, this is another country, other countries function different. But I want to say it could have also been like because it's the 60s, barely coming out of the 50s. And even though there is the feminist revolution, I really don't think it really took a hold, perhaps globally, till past the 60s and maybe going into the 70s, right? With hippie culture. So I believe the creator for the 2021 version, aside from the fact that they wanted to put their own different spin to it, it just wouldn't make sense to make the wife meek anymore. And especially in such a tech savvy world where it's mostly male dominated. So it makes sense for her to be more the aggressor, the more aggressive person here. So it's a fresh new perspective when she's the not only the breadwinner but also the aggressor here. Um, and we see the husband in a more subdued role. So in episode two, it very much mimics like the 1973 episode. I think it's Paula it's episode three. So episode two is Paulie. Ah, haha, yes. And we skipped the art of sweeping things under the rug because I think we're introduced more of like of the family, his mother. We see his mother in the 2021 version, but not till the end. So certain things were kind of rearranged, maybe just to fit the story for this updated version. So Paulie is the name of Mira's new um, love interest. Her Basically, she's stepping out of her marriage because of Paulie, and she comes in all nice and she seems kosher with her husband. He didn't even expect her. He thought that she was going to come in the next day, so he had wrapped everything up. Everything was, the lights were off. The child had gone to bed, and he was just kind of like eating his leftovers. It was like a snowy night, and she's rushing to the house. She's driven wherever from her for perhaps the Metro North, and then she's driven home. She's all nice, and you can see her office attire. It's serious business, so she's up in a bun, and she seems frantic. She seems frazzled, and she's eating, and she wants to be updated with what's happened during the course of the day. But she seems like she's agitated, like her mind is like working a million miles per hour because she needs to get something off her chest. And very much like the 1973 version, it's the husband, and he admits that he has been stepping out of the marriage with a woman called Paula. Now, in the 1973 version, we technically never see her. We don't have any notion of her other than the fact that she's just a new interest for him. He's the college professor, and I think maybe perhaps he met her, a younger woman, Paula, an unseen character. I'm reading it from Wikipedia, and wants a separation. He intends to leave home for many months and shares his frustration about their marriage and a long-time desire to leave. Upon phoning a friend for help, Mariana learns, that's the wife, learns many of her friends knew about the affair before she did. Now, in the same scenario plays out here, and there's some like really crushing scenes because it's like, and again, I don't know if it's just because these two actors know each other and trust each other's instincts. I mean, again, I always do my research, and they've known each other for 20 plus years. They went to Juilliard, so there's a lot of trust there. Where, let's just say that they did such a brilliant job as actors, you feel like you're a fly on the wall. You have intruded on their privacy, and this is a real married couple. Aside from the fact that, like what I told you at the beginning of the video, you see that they're getting ready to get into the scene. So you know they're actors. And of course, I mean, this is fantasy. But the way that they embody that raw emotion, you really feel like you're watching a married couple, and the deterioration of that love or union that they have. So she goes into specifics and just tells her that she feels suffocated, that she knows that he harbored resentment towards her because of the abortion. She knew that she didn't want to have another child because she would feel tied to him for heaven knows how long, and she just didn't want to go through that motion. She thought of anything that in aborting that it would save their marriage, but then she quickly realized, like, this isn't it. This is not the option that we should both have. Paulie is much younger, so we also see the dynamics of an older woman. Not that she's ridiculously older. I think she's 43. Perhaps Paulie is like in his 20s. And she's gotten like a shot of adrenaline in being with a younger man. Maybe she's also revisited her former life before marriage, before children. She's very much invested and has convinced herself that she's in love with him. So they have a really heartbreaking scene. He's dumbfounded, like almost like he was sideswiped. They still have managed to go back to the bedroom. And again, she has to consider herself lucky because perhaps it's just me, maybe because of prior experiences, maybe also from what I've seen in the news. That's how crimes of passion kind of happen, because of like something like that happening, and some people can lose their temper really quick. So the fact that he is able to kind of handle it without actually like losing it or going totally off on her, she should have appreciated. But, and again, I'm not encouraging violence or anything like that, but just the fact that like, and there are instances where he gets snippy at her because she's just like, and this is what I didn't like, but it's how do I describe this? This is an acknowledgement of her talent, because her mate, I mean, you understand why she's kind of going through that, but she has this like desperation, like almost like a mania. She has like an episode of mania. She's making it seem like she's like living this atrocious life and that she really feels trapped, and she's just like, I have to go, to the point where you're like, you really loathe her. You really loathe how she's behaving, because he's really calm, cool, and collected. And maybe that's what she doesn't want, or she doesn't like of him. That he's always kind of put together and she's not. So she's crying, it's a mess, and screaming, and she's like, I'm leaving for 3 months because I'm going to do whatever across the pond in London or whatever. And I'll be back. And she's just like fully on board with like deserting her kid, or not, even though she said that she'd FaceTime and whatever, and then it'll be just like normal. It's just that she won't physically be there. And he's like, well, if you gotta go so badly, then just leave now. There are those instances where he has moments of honesty. But she's like, well, you should have been honest with me from the beginning, and you know that you wanted this kid, and you just harbored resentment towards me, and you made me feel lonely. So you deserted me emotionally, and I needed to feel, like I was desired perhaps, or I was wanted, and Paulie made her feel that way. And in the case of the 1973 version, Paula made him feel that way, not Marianne, his wife. I mean, there were even instances where, it was kind of weird to even like touch her. He wanted to touch his wife and be intimate with her, and she would have an issue. So again, not putting blame or judgment on either couples, but it really got under my skin the way she was behaving. And then she falls asleep and wakes up like a little angel, like nothing has happened. Kind of makes you feel like, what is happening? What are the inner workings of this person's brain? Why cause such an alarm? Then the next morning she's just so sweet and touching him like they're in a loving, like nothing's happened. They're in a loving relationship. And he looks at her and takes it back like, do you not remember what happened last night? She rushes into the bathroom. She has to get dressed and clean herself quickly because she has to go. She has a 9 o'clock meeting and she wants to leave at 6 in the morning because she has to get going. And she's just like gonna explore this new relationship, and to hell with the marriage. It's crazy. It's the craziest scene I've ever seen in my life. But this does happen. I know women like her. So this isn't far-fetched. He follows her in there. He's just like still like in shock. And then she's like, I gotta go. She grabs everything from her closet and her heels, and she's just stuffing it in the suitcase. It doesn't fit. I think it's just a sense of him just trying to control the situation, that she's either having some manic, I don't know, episode, and he can't control the situation, so he kind of puts her to the side. But now I don't know if he pushed her, shoved her out of frustration, or she fell, because she's acting crazy. And he helped her pack. Basically helping her pack to run into the arms of some other dodo. She's with her child, and she feels guilty, but she has to go. And that doorway scene. Side note, I want to say that also at the end of every episode in the credits, it looks very much like, you don't know what you're looking at. You're looking at a thriller. You're looking at a drama, a dramatic film. It's shot very much like, I think it was in 1962, film of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which they also updated. It's on Netflix. You have a contemporary version. I think Zendaya's in it, and a John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son. And it's called Malcolm and Marie, and I liked it, but it definitely was not like the original Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which I think is a lot more, believe it or not, even for a film that is in black and white, and doesn't have that, I don't think they have strong language in it, and if it does, it's limited, but it cuts more to the jugular than this contemporary. It feels very much like a Calvin Klein kind of movie, and I loved it. I did review it, but I reviewed it on Instagram, not YouTube. But it wasn't the same. And so in the end of every episode, you see like that doorway, in which when we realize much later that the doorway has much more weight and significance than we would assume. Because at this instance, that doorway is like he is trying to grab on to anything regarding his marriage. He's trying to save his marriage. She's not having it. She is fighting tooth and nail for her freedom. She does not care if he, is crying and is heartbroken. She got to get out of there. She Ubers it out of there and she's gone. And he's left like frazzled. He calls his friend and thinks like they're a couple friend. They're divorcing, but they're the closest that they have. They're close friends. And he's like, can you talk to her so that she can kind of like maybe come to her senses? And they were like, well, we don't want to say anything, but we kind of knew all along. It's like, how messed up is that? Yeah, and he flips. That's where he flips, because he's like, he just has a natural emotion. Like, how dare you be in my house, laying your problems on us, and you knew what was going on? What kind of friendship is that? He just goes over the edge. And it ends there, and then you see these like particular scenes, and they're just like jump cuts of the house and the exteriors, and it feels very much like a horror movie. Like, it's like, okay, well, what's happening here? So that was good, and that was a really interesting way of shooting. So it feels like a jumble of things, but we still are still watching a drama between these two and what happens next. So bleeding over into the third episode, and that's why I'm kind of dressed this way, because so some time has passed. She has lived her life with her Polly, and for some reason, why is she coming back to the house being very coquettish with her soon-to-be ex? She wanted out of the marriage, right? Why does she come over with this like sexy dress top, this beautiful coat, pea coat, I think. Um, it's very expensive. She's doing really well. She's able to pay the mortgage, pay everything. And she has like this proposition for her husband, for Jonathan. She's been promoted. So, but in promoting her, they need her to start in the new offices in London. And she's more than willing to go. All the money, she's enticing him. I gotta say, whatever this woman does in tech, whether it's promotion or something, she's brilliant at it, because she knows every angle to hit to convince him. But he's going through like the motions, and he's like, "Are you insane? Like, first you want to end this marriage. Now, because you got this promotion, you want me to uproot my life and my child's life to go follow you. And you're still living with this other man that broke up our marriage. Like, are you insane?" But this is where we see more of or have more of an understanding of this character, that she's very egocentric. The world only revolves around her and her needs. And she rarely cares much about her husband. And again, she's the one in the control. She's very much in the driver's seat. And then we can see that a year has passed, I think. And, but at least he stands his ground. And he's like, no, that's not going to happen. In comparison to, remember, we have a reversal of roles. So the wife in the 1973 version, who is the one that's left, is practically like begging for her husband to come back, or it just seems like, very like, oh, just weak. Sorry to say it, but weak. He lets in the 1921 version, the 2021 version with Jonathan here, he lets it be known, it's like, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to be, sacrificing just because he's on sabbatical and he can write wherever he wants. Does that entice him to go running after her because it's going to benefit her? She literally wants her cake and eat it too. She wants her affair, she wants her husband, and she wants her child close by and have the promotion and everything, not considering that these people are just trying to redo their lives after she made this bold decision of breaking up her marriage. So I don't know what happens in the course of it. I think he tries to dissect it, of what happened, what transpired between them in the first two episodes, and in the time that they've been separated, and she's come in and out of both their lives, him and his daughters. We don't see that in the original one. And she almost nearly like when he tries to dissect it psychologically, she kind of scoffs at him and kind of like berates him, like, what are you doing, dating a therapist now? And he's like, well, he doesn't really deny who he's like, that he is dating, but he is seeing a therapist. He admits that because of her departure, it was hard for him to reason and to survive. He wished her physical harm. He wished physical harm upon himself. He then went so far as to think something atrocious and wish physical harm on his daughter, just to put an end to the pain that he was going through, because he could not understand why. You dissect it in the sense that, like, what you're seeing here is like somebody who can't wrap their brain around it. Like, I've done everything right. I've been a good partner. I've been a champion for her. I've appreciated her and applaud her accolades, applauded her promotion in the workforce as a woman, and all of that is, and I've been loyal and faithful, and all of that's not worth, worth anything because she's still willing to cheat and leave. So, for some reason, something has gone awry, or perhaps she misses being with him sexually. She wants to sleep with him. And she tries everything in the book. She's had too much wine. She wants to listen to his woes. She just can't leave. And the husband does the same thing in the 1973 version. He's too drunk. So she offers him the house. You can stay. And even though he's like, this is not good for my mental health, he falls back into old habits because, again, they're still married. And she even tries the whole, like, let me put on your shirt. I mean, come on. Those are all moves that we know that'll get our partner hot. And that's what she wanted to get some. And he almost nearly went there. But then, the issue that sideswipes that is that he is dating somebody else, and that person bombards him with texts and whatnot. And that kind of, like, she falls into some realization like, oh, what I just wanted was a simple hookup. He's willing to now forego his new current relationship, and am I messing that up? And I don't even think it has anything to do about him. It's just that she just didn't want the attachment back on her. She's that selfish. And so, again, she goes back to her own habits, her old bad habits of leading him on, knowing that this is a painful process, not only because they're married, but because of their children, they're her child, the child they share. Which, again, is just completely cruel. So once she senses his attachment, she's like ready to go. And he plays her an audio that even Polly has had it with her. Her new love interest, her new boy toy. He sent the husband a voice message like, look, I think she's going to head over there, and you two are still married. So, have at it. If you want to do something, go ahead. But if she wants to come back to you, I sure as hell I'm not going to fight her. So he has had it with her as well. So I think this episode she does realize there's something wrong with her emotionally. And perhaps because of that, maybe that's why she doesn't go through with her impulse of wanting to get back with him or just to even sleep with him. And then that moment is interrupted when his daughter wakes up and he tries to lull her back to sleep, and she leaves. So now entering episode 4, we pick up maybe a year has passed, 2 years, close to almost 2 years throughout the process of the divorce, but maybe a year from this night. They've reached an understanding they're gonna get divorced. You see the same instance in the 1973 version. He seems a little down on the dumps, though, the husband, and she seems very kind of like, okay, I think she's starting the process of moving on. They're even chummy with each other, and the same thing you see here with the episode 4. They've discussed, okay, how we're going to separate our joint ventures, our joint accounts, the house. Daddy's moving to a new house, and she already has her apartment. Her relationship is becoming estranged with her daughter, though they're having some issues. The child does not like the change. Who would? And then also, not for nothing, in episode 3 and 4, she says, in episode 3, she says she hasn't formed an attachment to material things. But going into episode 4, the child, first off, doesn't want her mother to forget her stuffed animals. So the child has developed some attachment to material things. And then she flips over I believe their first sofa that they purchased as a couple is some green sofa. And I was like, well, if you have all the money in the world, girl, to buy new things, why do you care, or you're having issues over the damn sofa? You said yourself in the episode prior that you don't form attachments to anything. So again, odd. She has a headache. She's giving the runaround about the paperwork. She doesn't. The movers are coming, and for some reason, somehow they kind of sideswipe into something, and then they're looking at each other, and they go to town. So what we were like itching to get in episode 3, we get it in episode 4, and it is, honey. This is what I'm saying. There must be a lot of trust between these two actors because it really looked like they really went there. Obviously not, but what an intimate scene. Now that is a love scene. Well, not even a love scene, but that is just like nasty romp. That whatever she was trying to get out in the last episode, she definitely got here. She got her double servings here. And then when you compare it to the 1973 version, I'm sorry, that's a romper room. That's a PBS special in comparison to this because they really went at it. I'm like, whoa. It's like, are we really? And we got full frontal with Oscar, who plays Jonathan. It's like, wow. It's subtle, but it's there. And I think they both kind of agreed that, like, if she was going to have nude scenes, that he would too. But all of it is there. So, hello. Nonetheless, they have their romp, and they even come to the agreement, like, okay, let's just sign the papers, and then let's just have a nice meal. And then we realize she doesn't want to sign the papers. They get into a really nasty fight, and then you see her break down, and then she herself admits that, what if we give it another try? And he's like, you want to do this now? 2 years after the fact, when I begged you, let's try it out, let's go to counseling, you didn't want to do anything, and now you want to come back? And then we find out that the headache that she had when she first came in was caused by the fact that her job wants to fire her. Corporate America is quick. Like, they don't find a purpose for you, and she didn't take the promotion to go to London, so they don't know where to place her. Her time was limited, and they gave her the boot. So she has no financial security, and I believe Paulie, because he wanted to expand, he wanted to have children with her, he dumps her. So she's been dumped and let go. So she really felt like poop. And she wanted to come back to poor Jonathan. And Jonathan's like, no, I'm not having it. No, we did this. This is a vicious cycle. You're going to just revert back to what you were before. Let's just leave it. Let's cut our losses. Let's get a divorce. No, but listen, hear me out. She's going through the same motions that Jonathan did in the very first episode. And that doorway, like I said, the doorway becomes very significant here. And she fights him tooth and nail. Like, she even, like, decks him a few times. Like, no, we have to, like, she really wants him to stay. And there's somehow that she has, like, a key to the door. She hides it in her skirt. And he's like, what the? No, I'm out of here. Pay the movers. And so they have an altercation to the point where it got really ugly and physical, bad and quick. And they realize that, okay, and the 1973 version has the same exact thing. And it's really hard to watch that because, again, I mean, now they've gotten to that desperate point where now they're putting their hands on each other. That's not where you want to be. So they both miniseries, they come to the culmination, let's get a divorce. Let's call it quits.